everyone, it's Hannah from the Barking Branch Library, and I am here with my wonderful kitty, Princess. Can you say hi, Princess? Yes. And today I'm going to be showing you how to make gingerbread cutout cookies. This is one of my favorite things to have for the holidays. But Princess doesn't seem too interested in helping us out, so let's move over into the kitchen and I'll show you how to do those, okay? Alright, so welcome to my kitchen. We have all the supplies we'll need right here to make the gingerbread cutout cookies. And I'm really excited because these gingerbread cookies are pretty easy to make and they are super delicious. So once you learn how to make them, I bet you'll want to make them a bunch of times. And this recipe was actually introduced to me by my sister. And if you have one of our kits to go, it's going to include a recipe booklet in it. So make sure you follow along because that has all the ingredients and the way to make the recipe as well. So you can follow along as we do the video. And let's make these delicious gingerbread cookies together, shall we? Alright, so here is what we are going to need today. We have ingredients and equipment. So for equipment, you're going to need either a hand mixer, a stand mixer, or just a whisk. If you want to make sure your arms get nice and buff while you're stirring everything, it can be done by hand. You're going to need 2 mixing bowls, one that's a little bit larger than the other one. And then also we have some cookie cutters in here, so it doesn't have to be in that traditional gingerbread man shape. You could do a snowman or a tree like I have here. Any other kind of holiday symbol that's meaningful for you and your family, feel free to do that. I'm using plastic cookie cutters, but you can also use metal. And then one of the things that's not shown here is a cookie sheet. You will need 1 cookie sheet and access to an oven. So that's the equipment that you're going to need. As for ingredients, you need 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of shortening, 1 egg. This is where the magic happens. This is 1 cup of molasses. Then you're also going to need some vinegar. This is 2 tablespoons of vinegar. And then in here is going to be a bunch of ingredients that I've put together. It's mostly the spices and also the raising agents. So in that one, you have 1½ teaspoons of baking soda, a ½ teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of ginger, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 teaspoon of cloves. So don't skimp on those spices. You can skimp on a little bit of other things, but you definitely want to be sure that you have all those spices because that's what's going to make it taste super delicious. So make sure you do the full amount for those. All right, now that we have all our ingredients, we're going to go ahead and get started with the recipe. All right, so our first step is we're going to want to cream the shortening and the sugar together. So go ahead and grab the mixing bowl, your largest mixing bowl, and in it we're going to put the 1 cup of sugar, and then also the 1 cup of shortening. Now shortening can be a little bit finicky to get out of the box or the what it comes in the store, and also can be finicky to get out of a bowl. So if you want, you can just use a knife or table butter and just get it all out with that. And then kind of scrape it off the sides. So once we have those 2 things together, we are going to cream them together with either a hand mixer, stand mixer, or with your hands. If it's your hands, it's going to take quite a while. So I'll see you in a couple hours. Otherwise, we will just cream this together quickly. So another piece of equipment that you don't have to have, but that's super helpful, is a silicone or rubber spatula. This is kind of a must-have for any kind of baking, and it's really handy because you can scrape a lot of things a lot more easier than you could with like a metal spoon. So I'm just going to scrape down the sides of my bowl since it's kind of flying everywhere like it likes to do. And make sure you scrape down the sides of your bowl with something just so you're sure that everything is getting mixed together consistently. And then we'll go ahead and cream it a bit more. Okay, now that we've creamed together our sugar and our shortening, we're going to put in the other wet ingredients. So we're going to start by cracking our egg and putting it in that same bowl. No shells, that's a good sign. All right, and then we have our vinegar, which is 2 tablespoons of vinegar in here. Plop it right in. And then we have our cup of molasses, our liquid gold for gingerbread. And this is again a time when a rubber spatula might come in handy, because you might want to scrape the sides that your molasses is in. Make sure you get all of that goodness. And it's not January, so hopefully our molasses won't be too slow. Like the saying. Was that a terrible joke? All right. So now that we have all this, I'm gonna scrape our spatula off on the side again. Try to get it in there. We are going to beat all of this together. So the instructions say to beat well. So beat it until it's all consistent and looks like a beautiful golden brown color. Now it's starting to look and smell a little bit more like gingerbread with that molasses. So we're gonna move on and put our dry ingredients into our wet ingredients. Now the instructions do say to sift. This is kind of what I would consider optional, up to your preference. Some people get really involved in baking and have these fancy sifters where you crank something and it actually sifts all the dry ingredients through. If you have something like this that's like a fine mesh colander, that can also work pretty well for sifting, but you also don't have to, in my opinion. Sifting just kind of gets all the lumps and bumps out of the dry ingredients and might make the overall texture a bit smoother, but I haven't really noticed too much of a difference when I've sifted before and when I haven't. So if you don't have one of these, it's not a deal breaker. Optional to sift, but I will go ahead and show you how to do that if you are going to sift it. So we are going to take our spices and also our baking soda and our salt, and we're going to dump that into our flour. We have 5 cups of flour here in this mixing bowl. I think I might have forgotten to mention that one. So there's our 5 cups, and we're going to dump all our spices and our raising agents in there. And now we're going to take all that and dump it into our colander, our sifter, or just into our ingredients. So you probably want to do just a little bit at a time. I'll show you what it looks like. So a bit at a time here, and then you can either shake it like this, or you can whack the side of it. It's going to take me a while because I'm usually clumsy and it all falls out. Or you can shake it like a maniac like me and just go, ooh, because I find that's faster. So this is what it looks like when it's more sifted. You can tell there's kind of a difference in the texture. It's a little bit finer. So if you prefer that, please go ahead and do sifting. And if not, I will see you once our dry ingredients are added to our wet. Have our dry ingredients and our wet ingredients together, and we are going to use something like a rubber spatula or a spoon and stir everything together. So no need for a mixer at this point. However, if you did use a mixer, I would encourage you to pull all of this goodness off of the mixers. So make sure it's unplugged before you take them out, and we can go ahead and scrape those off a bit. It's not a lot, but I try to get all of the goodness that I've made because it tastes so good. And it always goes too quick. And it's fine if it's just sticking to your spatula, because the spatula will just plop right into that mixture in a bit anyway. Or you can give it to your kiddos or your partner, whoever you'd like, if you want them to lick it off, because that's also a good way to use this up. All right, so we got a little bit more of that goodness, and now we are going to stir everything together to make our batter. It's really more of a dough instead of a batter, I should call it. And this is the part where you're probably going to want to pop on a favorite Christmas tune, so you're not so bored, because it does take a little bit of time to mix everything together and get it looking like a good gingerbread dough. As you're going along, you see how it's coming together a bit more into bigger chunks. You might want to switch gears when you get to a later stage and actually wash your hands again with soap and water, and then use your hands instead and sort of knead it. I find that sometimes with it being a bit of a drier dough, it's easier to use my hands to get it all mixed together. So keep stirring, or in my case, I'm going to wash my hands and I'll be right back to stir with my hands since I prefer that. Like once you've done some work at mixing it all together. I've been mixing with my hands, and you might want to, when you're done, even with a spoon, kind of push on it and see if it's packed down. So you can see the texture, it's still kind of crumbly, but if you squeeze it together, it turns hard like that and packs together nicely. So go ahead and just pack it all together there in the bowl. And that looks nice. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover this with plastic wrap or whatever you'd like to cover it with, and then put it in your fridge. This is the most time preparation, is waiting to actually make the cookies. So now that we have our dough, we have to wait for 3 hours. So go ahead and put it in your fridge for 3 hours. Try not to think about eating it all while it's in there. And I will see you then. Back. I pulled the dough out of the fridge after it was in there for about 3 hours, and actually the initial dough that I had was still too dry. So what I did is I added a tablespoon or two of water and gently mixed it in there. You don't want to mix it too much because that'll make it tougher, but I just mixed it up in there. And then what else I did is I let this actually sit and kind of warm up from being in the fridge, and let it warm up a bit more with the extra water in there. So if you get a dough that was looking like mine when you pull it out of the fridge and it's still like way too dry and it's not really holding together when you try to roll it out, add a couple tablespoons of water at a time, and also let it kind of warm up from being in the fridge. But now that we've done that, we're gonna go ahead and preheat our oven. I'm gonna preheat it to 375 degrees. All right, and And while that is preheating, we're gonna go ahead and roll this out and cut our cookies. So take a little bit of flour, not a ton, because this is already a dry dough that sometimes needs help. And just sprinkle it very lightly over the countertop. And you can take whatever extra you have and put it on your rolling pin. And now we're gonna dump it out and hope that it sticks better this time. And it got all over my hand, that's fun. All right, so hopefully it sticks better this time than it did the last time. So again, you don't want it to get too tough, so don't really work at rolling it out because it will kind of fall apart anyway. You just kind of want to push down and get like a smooth, even layer for your cookies. All right, I might actually just start with that and kind of push it back together. Now this is the other thing that we're gonna have to kind of see together with this amount of water, how well our cookie cutters hold together. So I'm gonna try one. And you can kind of push them while they're in the cookie cutter too. Make sure that they're all together. Then you want your cookie sheet, of course. Forgot to show you that. And hopefully this time we can get a cookie that comes out. When I was trying it earlier, their little legs were falling off. So you do want to be really gentle. It's a very dry dough. So again, we'll do that again. Push down the cookie cutter, kind of pack the dough together so that it all sticks together when you pull the cookie cutter out. Kind of shake it so it gets free. And then gently set it down on the cookie sheet before you lift this cookie off. Gingerbread people, our snowman, and our tree. So go ahead and just roll all of these out. Once you have a full sheet, it's definitely going to take a couple cookie sheets. You're going to want to cook them at 375 and only for a couple minutes. So only 5 to 6 minutes. Keep a close eye on them because they do not take long to cook at all. And yeah, I will show you what it looks like when I've pulled it out of the oven. Okay, so once you've pulled them out of the oven, they should look something like this. And now you can either let them cool and decorate them, or you can just enjoy them plain. I prefer them plain, but icings and red hots are always a fan favorite as well. So if you have kiddos, it could be a great time to decorate these. So that is how you make those gingerbread cutout cookies. I hope you enjoy them. And if you haven't picked up one of our kits to go already, you can still do that. Give us a call at 719-562-5680. It's full of all kinds of delicious baking goodies, the recipe book on how to follow along with all of our recipes, and some fun crafts as well. So I hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.